The for statement is used whenever you want to iterate over a sequence and execute a piece of code for all or some elements of that sequence, list or string or whatever sequence you have. Let's start with an example of iterating or looping over a sequence. And first, let's define a list. I have already defined it. It is called vendors. Let's see it. Okay. Now let's see how can we make the for statement helpful to us. First, you will notice that there are some similarities to the if, elif, else syntax, meaning that the colon is again used to signal that an indented code follows the for statement. And speaking about indentation, we must indent the code inside the for loop using the tab key to separate it from the code that follows and is not part of that for statement. Let's better see this. We start by typing the for keyword. Then we enter the iterating variable, which is user defined, so you can name it however you like. Let's name it each vendor. Then we type the in keyword, so in, to specify that we are going to iterate over the sequence following this keyword. And finally, the sequence itself, followed by colon. So, vendors and a colon. Okay, then a tab, let's say print each vendor. So I named my variable, my iterating variable, in such a way that it reflects my specific need. In this case, each vendor. Then I told Python that it should assign each element in the list to the iterating variable and execute the indented code below for every element until all the elements in the list are exhausted. So Python did this and printed each list item. Of course, you can have multiple lines inside the for block as with the if, elif, and else statements. We can also iterate over a string. Let's see this. Let's create myString equals Cisco. Okay, and let's say for letter in myString. Okay, print letter, then another tab, print letter times 2, and print letter times 3. Okay, so first we assign a value to the myString variable. Then, using a for statement, we assign each character in the string to the letter variable, and for each time we do this, Python executes the indented code block below the statement. So, for each letter of Cisco, Python prints out the letter itself, the same letter doubled and then tripled. Now it's time to talk about two Python functions that are frequently used with for loops, range and xrange. Let's have a look at the range function for now. The range function does nothing more than just creates a list using a value we specify in between parentheses. So let's try it and see how it works. Let's do a range of 5. Okay, now let's do a range of 10. So after passing an argument of type integer to this function, Python creates a list starting from 0 as the first element and going up to, but not including, the integer we give as an argument. So it stops right before that value. But what if you don't want to start the list from 0? Then you should specify a starting point, like this. Let's say range of 5, 10, where 5 is the starting point, and the list will go up to, but not including, 10. Let's see this. Okay. Now what if you want to skip some elements and specify a step to increment by? Maybe you want to get the odd numbers between 1 and 10. You can do the following. Range of 1, 10, 2, where the third element in parentheses is actually the step value. So we got the odd elements between 0 and 10. Nice. Now, as I said, there is also the xrange function available in Python. The difference is that while range creates the entire list from the very beginning, xrange creates the list elements as they are needed, so it is more memory friendly than the range function. Now let's see an example of a for loop using the range function. Let's say for I in range of 5, a colon, then a tab, print I times 2. So we used for to loop over the list created by the range function, and for each element print out its value multiplied by 2. Nice. Now let's see a more common use of the range function inside the for statement. What if we want to iterate over a list using list indexes? Let's see what do I mean by that. We still have the vendors list in memory, so let's see vendors. Okay. Now remember the len function from the previous lectures? Let's apply it to our list. So len of vendors equals 5, because we have 5 elements in the list. We know that range of 5 returns a list starting from 0 up to, but not including 5. So let's check this. Range of 5. Okay. We can look at the elements of this list as being the indexes of each element of our list, vendors. So the element Cisco would have index 0. The element HP would have index 1, and so on. This means that if we want to get a list of indexes to iterate over using the for statement, we can use range of len of vendors, right? To obtain that list. So to use this in practice, let's create a for loop which prints out each element of the vendors list by its index. So for element index in range of len of vendors, tab, and let's say print vendors, and in between square brackets element index. So what we did here is we passed the result of one function, len, to another function, range. The result was the list of all indexes in the vendors list, depending on its length, of course. We then assigned each index value in this list to the element index variable and executed some code for each index. In translation, we told Python to check the length of vendors, get all possible indexes in the list, and then execute the for statement further. Python created the 0, 1, 2, and 1, 2, 3, and 4 list, and then printed out each element, vendors of 0, vendors of 1, and so on until the list was exhausted. Another very useful way to iterate over a sequence is by using both the index and the element value as iterating variables. This can be achieved using the enumerate function in Python. So let me first write this. So let's say for index, comma, element in enumerate of vendors. Let's say print index is, and let's use a format operator to remember it from earlier lectures, index, and also print, let's say element is, and we will use the format operator for strings, the %, and the element variable. Okay, so using this method, Python returns both the index and the element value at the same time. Cool. The last thing I'll add here is that you can also use an else statement for the for statement. The indented code below else will be executed when for has finished looping over the entire list. So let's try this. For element in vendors, let's say print element. Then else, a colon, then a tab key, and let's say print the end of the list has been reached. Okay, so as you can see, this for else block prints each element in the list, and finally it prints the string below the else statement, which is what we wanted in the first place. That's about all you have to master when talking about for loops. We will use them widely across our applications, so you should have a very good understanding of them before moving to the application building part of the course.